Since the dawn of humanity, a question has stubbornly echoed through generations. Who are we? Where did we come from? And where will we go when all this is over? Science studies the body. Religion points to the soul. But between the visible and the invisible, there is a territory called paranormality. Some people, by gift, destiny, or sensitivity, seem to have been born with the key to this hidden world. Or perhaps they have learned to open portals that most don't even know exist. Mediums, sensitives who hear voices, receive messages from other dimensions, and live through experiences like conscious projection, also known as astral projection, leaving their bodies behind and returning with answers that no book could ever contain. Who are they? What can these ancestral souls teach us about life, death, and everything in between? We, at Project Consciousness, have prepared a special series to unravel the stories and the mysteries behind history's greatest mediums. Get ready, because after this, you may never see reality the same way again. He was born in a simple town in the interior of Minas Gerais, but his name would become known throughout Brazil and far beyond. Francisco Cândido Xavier, or simply Chico Xavier, lived like an ordinary man. He worked from an early age, suffered losses, and faced difficulties like any other humble Brazilian. But there was something about him different. Since he was a child, Chico claimed to see and hear what no one else noticed: invisible presences, whispered voices in the silence, messages that seemed to cross the border between two worlds. Throughout his life, he would write or psychograph more than 450 books, none of them signed with their own name, all attributed to spirits. For millions, Chico was a messenger from beyond, to others an enigma that defied logic and science. What cannot be denied is the impact his words and presence had on those who knew him. In this episode, let's dive into the life, work, and phenomena that surrounded Chico Xavier, a story that mixes faith, controversy, and events that to this day remain unexplained. Chico Xavier was born in April 2, 1910, in Pedro Leopoldo, a small town in Minas Gerais. Brazil was still a rural country, marked by simplicity and the close coexistence between faith, superstition, and popular religiosity. From a very early age, Chico claimed to see and hear things that no one else noticed. At 5 years old, he said he was talking to his mother, even after her death. In the beginning, the family thought they were children's imaginations, but the reports became more frequent and more specific. He described intimate details, words and memories that could only come from someone who had actually known him. Chico's childhood was not easy. Mother's child lived under the care of a strict godmother in an environment of severe discipline, often bordering on cruelty. It was at that stage that the spiritual voices and presences became more constant, and one of them would present itself as Emmanuel, the spirit that years later would become his guide and mentor. But at the time, Chico was just a poor boy, that carried in silence, a gift that no one could understand, and which, for some, was a reason for fear and rejection. What no one imagined is that skinny, soft-spoken boy would become one of the most influential spiritual figures of the 20th century. It was the year of 1927. Chico Xavier was only 17 years old. Until then, their visions and voices were a secret, shared only with a few friends and family. But everything changed when he was invited to participate in a spiritualist meeting in his city. There, sitting in front of a simple table, paper and pencil in front of you, Chico felt a gentle force guiding your hand. The words began to emerge, fast, continuous, as if they were already ready somewhere, just waiting to be written. The first message was signed by a spirit and brought advice and comfort to one of those present. The impact was immediate. The news spread throughout Pedro Leopoldo. People started looking for him, looking for answers, messages from deceased relatives, or simply a word that would ease the pain. Over time, these meetings became more frequent, and Chico, who had never studied literature in depth, began writing with a wealth of vocabulary and a command of the Portuguese language that surprised even the most literate. It was the beginning of a production that would become gigantic. More than 450 psychographed books in different styles, attributed to dozens of spiritual authors. But as for Chico, none of that was his. He insisted, "I'm just an instrument." In the decade of 1940, the name of Chico Xavier no longer belonged only to Pedro Leopoldo. His books, published with proceeds going to charity, began to circulate throughout the country. The psychographed stories, especially letters attributed to deceased loved ones, deeply touched those who received them. For many, they were proof that life went on. For others, a mystery that reason could not explain. Fame also brought the watchful eye of the press. Newspapers from various regions sent reporters to interview him. Some articles portrayed him as a holy man, or how the greatest medium of all time. Others insinuated fraud, or tried to belittle their experiences. Chico always reacted the same way, with silence, humility, and a service attitude. He refused personal profits. All the money from the books was allocated to charitable works. Chico lived on a modest salary, continuing his work as a public servant. Even so, the phenomenon around him only grew. Every year, more and more people traveled to meet him, some in search of answers, others just to feel the peace that, they said, seemed to emanate from him. But while he was gaining admirers, also accumulated detractors, and Chico knew that living between two worlds meant dealing with misunderstandings, both on this side and on the other side. Among thousands of letters psychographed by Chico Xavier, some gained national prominence, not just for the spiritual content, but for the impact on the real world. The most famous case happened in 1979. In Campo Grande, Mato Grosso do Sul, a young man named Mauricio Garcés Enriquez had died under tragic circumstances. During a psychography session, Chico wrote a letter attributed to the boy's spirit, addressed to parents. The text described precise details about Mauricio's life, information that Chico could never have known through ordinary means. But the most surprising point is that the letter exonerated the defendant accused of murder, claiming that the death had been an accident. The document was taken to court. And for the first time in the history of Brazil, a psychographed letter was accepted as court evidence. The case divided opinions. For some, it was the definitive proof of life after death. For others, a miscarriage of justice. But this was not an isolated case. Throughout his life, Chico wrote countless messages that comforted families, brought reconciliation, and in some cases even influenced legal decisions. Regardless of one's belief, the fact is that these letters left a mark on Brazilian history, mixing spirituality, emotion, and the very notion of truth. In the last decades of his life, Chico Xavier was already more than a medium. It was a national symbol of charity, faith, and humility. Even with advanced age and fragile health, continued to serve hundreds of people a week, always with a smile, always with words of comfort. He refused official honors several times, saying that all merit belonged to the spirits, and that he was just a messenger. In June 30th, 2002, Chico Xavier passed away at the age of 92 in Uberaba, Minas Gerais. Coincidence or not, it was the same day that Brazil won its 5th World Football Championship. He himself had already said, jokingly, who would ask God to take him on a day of great national joy, so that the people would not cry so much. Even so, thousands of people attended his wake, forming a queue that lasted more than 24 hours. Men, women, children, everyone wanting to say a last goodbye. Today, Chico Xavier is remembered not only for his works, more than 450 books, thousands of letters and messages, but by the example of a simple life, dedicated to the next, without seeking fame or fortune. For many, he was a missionary of peace. For others, a mystery that will never be fully explained. But for everyone, a man who left a trail of light in the hearts of those who knew him, directly or indirectly. Chico Xavier said, who was not the author of anything, just one instrument, where messages of love and hope passed, and faith, your life, was living proof that humility can be more powerful than any title or social position. To some, he was a saint. For others, an enigma. But above any label, Chico was a man who chose to serve, and maybe this is the greatest teaching he left. Serve without expecting anything in return. Reach out, even when no one is looking. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced something you can't explain? Have you ever felt someone's presence, even after death? Tell your story in the comments. Subscribe to Consciousness Project. Like this video. Turn on notifications to continue this journey with us. In the next episode, let's meet a figure who crossed countries, gathered secrets of ancient traditions, and challenged the worldview of his time. A life marked by mysterious journeys, unlikely contacts, and a knowledge that, for some, seemed to come from somewhere else. But this, leave it for later. For now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and remember, you are consciousness, you are presence, you are much more than you imagine.